welcome back. So here's a question for you. You buying a house? You selling a house? What do you know about real estate? What do you know about what you should know when you buy or sell a house? Well, this is the place for you today because we have a very special guest. My name is Vin Dacquino. Her name is Karinta DiMartino. Karinta.
Hi there.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you for inviting me.
So glad to have you here. Buying and selling a house is not as easy as it sounds sometimes. And it's important that we have professionals to rely on. Mm-hmm. You are one of those professionals.
Thank you.
But before we get into that, I want to know, who are you? And how in the world did you get into all of this?
Well, I was born in the Bronx and raised there. And I moved up here to Carmel, New York in 1988. Married for 38 years almost.
Wow.
I have two children that I adore.
That's an award right there.
Two children that I adore, and I have a little granddaughter. So when I moved up here, I didn't work. I was a domestic engineer, as I like to call it. Excuse me. And
domestic engineer.
Yeah, I was a stay-at-home mom.
Yeah.
I thoroughly enjoyed that. And when my son was in 5th grade, I went back to work, and I started as a part-time teller. And then I went from that, I became an assistant manager at the bank that I was working at, and then they gave me my own branch in Mount Kisco, and that's my banking background. So from there, I moved to Hudson Valley Bank with one of the loan officers at the bank who said, come and work for me. We're going to start a construction lending division at Hudson Valley Bank, and that's what we did. And,
so you had some financial background.
Yes,
That's
and
good.
from there, I met the person that I work for now at the title insurance agency. And
he said, come on down.
Yep, he did. He invited me to join his firm and work as his assistant, which is what I did. And I'm there 20 years now. So
Wow.
5 years as working his assistant, I always say he gently pushed me into sales. And it's been well worth it for me.
So,
I really enjoy it.
So what exactly do you do, Karinta?
I sell title insurance.
Now, title insurance. I've heard that 100 times. Mm-hmm. When you're buying a house, you don't have a choice. You have to have title insurance. Why? What is it?
Well, title insurance protects you as the buyer. It ensures that you're buying a piece of property that has no liens on it.
So a title means ownership.
Correct.
So when you buy a house, you want to make sure that the guy before you didn't have debt, that the property is free and clear. Mm-hmm. So that's your job.
Right. Well, you want to make sure that the buyer that's buying it is not going to inherit that. That's what you're insuring. That's what the title insurance insures, is that you're not insuring any of the previous owner's problems.
All right. So,
or debt.
So you have to make sure that title is clear. That's another thing I hear all the time.
Right.
Make sure the title is clear.
Right.
And even with cars, I know that sometimes people have cars that the deed, the title to the car is not clear.
Right.
And you have to make sure that owner didn't still owe a bank or something. Mm-hmm. So it's the same way with a house. It could be that he had a lien on his property, and if you're not careful, you inherit the lien.
Right, that's what the title insurance company insures, is that you're not going to be responsible for that.
Now, does the title insurance also cover property lines, surveys?
Yes.
Tell me about that.
Well, we're insuring the meets and bounds description for the property. So you should have a new survey done so that you're ensuring that someone hasn't built a shed and now it's on your property.
Right.
A lot of times the real estate agents that I do business with will say, well, there's already a survey, and sometimes they're good, sometimes they're not good, they're not certified correctly.
I know
or
many
sometimes,
times,
or sometimes, I'm sorry, but sometimes I'll say to them, the survey was done when President Eisenhower was president, so.
Yeah, and it was the oak tree that
might be a good
hasn't
idea to
been
get a
there
new
in
one, right,
27 years.
Right. Right.
Yeah, I know we ran into that. I live in Mayapack, and there's stone walls everywhere.
Yeah.
But some of those stone walls have moved. Even some of the no, I can't think of it, like the caves.
I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. They're gone. And I know when I moved up there, I saw some of these boundaries. People move them.
Yeah.
And it will throw you off. So you recommend, now I know title insurance, you must have title insurance.
Well, a bank wants you to
require it.
have,
Yeah.
yes, a bank will not give you a mortgage without,
But you're not required to have a survey. But you should. I mean,
you should have a survey.
Some do.
Why would you
'Cause
want to buy?
I know some people who have bought houses and they accepted the old survey, like you say. And the old survey could be from 1929. And so many things have changed since
Right.
1929.
Right.
I was amazed to find that my property was actually two properties. There was actually a front lot and a back lot. And the history on the two were not the same. And for me, it was amazing because the front lot did not qualify me to be a member of the Lake Association.
But the
The
back lot did?
did.
Okay.
Because the back lot was owned by a woman who was one of the original founders of the Lake Association. So I was covered under my second lot. For years, the people who lived before me never knew that.
Right.
And never had lake rights. So I tell people, if you've never been to the clerk's office to look up the history of your property, you should.
Yeah.
It's fascinating.
Yeah.
And you can go in and find out who owned the property all the way back.
Yes.
And the property next door, the property behind me. I thought the property behind me was owned by the environmental, the EPA, is it?
EPA.
DPA.
Yeah.
Right.
Environmental protection.
It turns out it's not. It's privately owned.
Yeah.
Acres and acres and acres behind my house. And so it's interesting. And it's interesting to know also the property lines. It's like you say.
Yeah.
When I go through and I saw property lines, again, there were trees and rocks,
That people used to use as designation spots.
25 feet from the rock. The rock, I have about 30 of them. Which rock are they talking about?
Well, sometimes things are done in a very friendly way, too. So sometimes, like, let's say if you and I are neighbors and we're friends for a long time, and you say, hey, Corinne, do you mind? I'm just going to put this fence up here, but I also want to put a gate in here. And I don't care because we're friends and you're my neighbor. But then
when they sell
if
the
I
house,
move,
right.
you might not want that person
And
that's
you may have
right,
very
to have
well
that access.
built a shed on somebody else's property.
Right.
And you have to tear it down.
Right.
I know that a lot of my neighbors ran into a problem when they tried to get a CO.
A certificate of occupancy, yes.
Yes. And that CO, that certificate of occupancy, had some very specific things about it that didn't exist now. They added decks and sheds and things that were not there. And some of them ran into problems when they went to sell their property. They had to knock them down. And
Well, that's not always the case. Sometimes the building inspector will come out and then give
Right.
you the C of O for it,
Yep.
as long as it's built up to code.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of the things that can happen.
so there are things that happen. So your job is really to protect people who buy or sell houses.
Right.
Now, you protect both or one or the other?
No, the buyer.
The buyer.
We represent the buyer.
Represent the
It's
buyer.
the seller's responsibility to make sure that his house is up to code.
Up to code.
And your real estate agent will make
And
sure
then
of that.
you make sure that that seller is, so that your buyer doesn't get burned.
Correct.
So that's your job too.
Well, we're really ensuring that the house that you're buying is owned by the person that's selling it to you and that you're buying it free and clear. So we're not ensuring the municipal search, which is what you're talking about. So
Right.
like the housing, the building,
So you
the C
focus
of O.
more on the rights.
Right, correct. We don't focus on the municipal search. We don't
Oh,
really,
okay.
we're not
But you
responsible for
caution
that.
the buyer about that.
Well, when we send the title report out, that's going to be,
On the
that
report.
search is in the report and it goes to the attorney. And the attorney is going to advise his client, most likely, hey,
Yeah.
did you know you're buying a 4-bedroom house, but the C of O is only for 3 bedrooms? Did you know that?
Right.
And that could become a
And
negotiating part
I
of the
imagine
deal
that
then
has
too.
to do with taxes too, right?
Right, well, you
I mean,
know.
it could make the taxes higher or lower. Or,
Right. Well, more, importantly is that if you have well and septic, and the house was built for a 3-bedroom house, and now there's a 4-bedroom house,
Oh,
or
so
you've
you're in
added
violation.
a bathroom that wasn't there before, because I believe it goes by the bathrooms. Your septic system
Right.
is determined by how many bathrooms are in the
Right.
house. So there's a lot of different things like that,
Yeah.
But we don't insure that,
So you
but we'll
help
bring it
the
up.
buyer beware.
We try.
Yep, sounds good. Now, so you've been doing this for a while. How does a person become what you are? I mean, you have to go to college for that?
No, but it's good if you understand the real estate industry.
So I imagine you had to do your homework.
Some of it, well, my background was my homework. A long time ago, I had my real estate license, and I worked for a local developer at the time, Teddy McGlasson, who actually built my home.
Oh, wow.
He was a great guy, and so he built my home, and then I have the banking background, and then I met Kenny Messia, who I work for now at the title insurance agency, and I've been there ever since. So my education has just been in all the years that I've been doing
So
business.
here's a loaded question for you. You like your job?
I love my job.
You love your job?
I love my job.
What do you love about it the most?
Well, I love the company I work for because the
Okay.
people that I work for are very family oriented. I'm all about my family, and they've always allowed me to put my family first. It was very important to me because my husband
Yeah.
always had a business and he was never really home. He had a business.
And often in your job, you're representing families.
Correct.
And protecting families.
Right, right. So it allows me to become, one of my clients said to me, Corinne, when you walk in my office, you're not a salesperson, you're my family. He said,
That's wonderful.
the name of my children and my pets,
Yeah.
and you care about them, and you take care of situations for me.
This show is about people and their passions. And regardless of what you do, if you have passion for what you do it well. And when you do that, you're serving people. And so many people get burned by people who don't really want to be there. And because they don't want to be there, they're not doing the job they're meant to do.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you do. You go out there and make sure that all the dots are there and all the T's are crossed, and that's important. Now, there's another part of what you do that interests me. There is the community service. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Oh, I love that part of what I do. So that's part of the networking, but it actually allows me to give back to my community. As I mentioned before, I did a lot of work with Jim Ratsmith with United for the Troops. We did many
United
fundraisers.
for the Troops has been here.
Great organization.
It is a great organization. Putnam County itself is a great place because they watch out for people in need.
Yes.
And not desperate people, good people who need help, and they're willing to help. And they've been on here and they talked about it. We've had some wonderful organizations on here, and even cancer organizations. And I know that you are part of that as well.
Yep.
But tell me a little bit more about some of the projects that you.
So we also have, as I mentioned to you, we have a golf outing coming up on May 21st. It's going to be at Westchester Hills Golf Club for St. Jude, and we're doing a golf tournament there. And your company has also offered to have the flyer up about it. You can call me, anybody can call me or email me for any information. We still have some openings for golfers.
Good. So it's a golf outing.
It's a golf
and the
outing.
money from the golf outing goes to St. Jude?
St. Jude, yes.
Wonderful. And to remind you, St. Jude helps children with cancer.
Correct.
Is it only cancer or just all disabilities?
It's a cancer
basically
hospital for
cancer.
children, yes. So we're doing all that we can to help. My daughter has a friend whose son passed from cancer. She also has 2 other friends that have children that have cancer. It's just horrible.
We had a wonderful, wonderful young man here who, Sean Callahan, was on the show really months before he passed. And Sean was such an incredible kid. Yeah. And he helped raise money and try to get people to understand that we need each other.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
We do need each other.
Yeah.
And that's what I like about you and your passion. Your face lights up when you talk about it, you know. So this golf outing, people who play golf will come in and they'll donate whatever they do
Yep.
to that to the organization, and then that money goes to help children with cancer.
Well, if you don't play golf, you can even just come for the dinner.
Okay,
There's an
so-
opportunity to come just for the dinner. It's $100 for the dinner. All the proceeds are going to go to St. Jude.
So you buy a ticket for $100, and
come
that
to
money
the
goes
dinner.
right to charity.
Yep.
And it goes to help children.
Exactly.
That's a great thing.
Yeah.
That's a good thing.
Yeah.
So that's one.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't there was something else that you had mentioned too? There's so it's the golf outing.
Right.
And that's the big one. That's the
That's
one.
the big one that we're doing, yeah. So St. Jude is on board with us to take care of that. We've had meetings with their representative. She's been great. We're going to be having another meeting with her, and then we have, as I said, you can come for just dinner if you don't play golf.
Right.
There's golf hole sponsorships if you want to just do that. They're not expensive at all. So we, want everyone to participate if they can. It would be a really great opportunity to give back to St. Jude also.
Yeah. I
and
know
help.
Danny Thomas and Marlo Thomas.
She had a great show, didn't she?
Oh yeah, really. And Danny Thomas too. I hate to admit my age.
He
but,
did. No, it's quite all right. I enjoyed him
Make
too.
Room for Daddy.
Yeah, that was a great show.
One of my favorites. Man.
Yep.
I used to do my paper route and run home to go watch that show because it was on at the same time.
Yeah.
And it's an important cause.
Yeah.
Cancer has been devastating for adults and children.
Yeah.
It's a scary thing.
Yeah.
And I'm glad to see that your passion is there. People out there need to understand that businesses, organizations, clubs, we need to help each other. There's so many people out there. So that's a big thing. And now the company that you work for is really kind of spread out. Is it just residences, or do you work with businesses as well?
Well, our main
Like
focus,
big factories or things?
our main focus of business, where we get our business from, is attorneys, real estate agents that help us also. Mortgage officers, when you refinance your house, a bank will ask you to get title insurance, so we'll get that from the mortgage loan officers in banks or mortgage companies. But we're New York State wide, and we do residential,
Wherever it
commercial,
is.
industrial
I know-
properties.
Now, I know my son is a surveyor,
Yes.
and he goes out there, oh my God, he said, Dad, you have no idea. I go out there, and I look at some of these things, and it's like we said before, it was made in 1929. And you go out there, and the survey is not what you think.
Right.
He said, and he goes to some of these people, and they say, yeah, my property goes up to that tree. And my son has to say,
Not really.
really. And they say, well, tell me, my deed says that it goes to that tree. And my son has to say, that's not the tree they were talking about. That one's been gone for a while.
Right.
And people get furious with him, because you really have to know. It's important to protect your property as far as that. And also, again, there's people who have gotten into trouble and they owe money on the property, or for whatever reason, maybe someone else owned the property with them and the deed is not clear, free and clear.
Right. So, talking about surveys, the situation that I spoke with you about before, we had a young couple that were buying a house.
Yeah.
And she was 8 months pregnant. And the house that they were going to move into, there was an encumbrance from the neighbor. And then someone else said that they were encumberancing on their back property. So we drew up boundary line agreements, and we had that taken care of. But one of the persons in the party was trying to push the deal through to close sooner than these boundary line agreements would be signed. So the real estate agent called me and said, what can we do about this? And I said, well, here's what would happen. If we did close earlier, your clients are going to get a letter in 2 weeks saying that they're getting sued.
Wow.
I said, so these are your clients. I said, this is a young girl who's buying a home. She's 8 months pregnant. Do you really want her to get that letter? The title companies do that fight. Let the title company have that. Let me
so
be
that's
that fight. Let us do that for you so that this is all taken care of. Everybody was happy. All the attorneys were happy. And we got it done. And they moved into their home free and clear conscience. They had they had an idea of what was going on, obviously, because their attorneys told them, but it was our fight. That's what any title company will do for you.
Right.
They take care of these situations, and that's their responsibility to make sure that you're buying this house free and clear.
Free and clear.
Right.
Yeah.
So
I am a history investigator.
right.
That's what I do. And I go in and try to look at some of these properties that go way back, to try to find, for example, where Sybil lived.
Yes.
It is fascinating. And what was more fascinating is when I went in there, here were all of these Liebers. They have all these books. They go back and back and back and back on the property. And then all these people were there, and these guys in ties are sitting there with books, and they're looking. I'm like, man, all these people have interest in their homes. And they said, no, those are title company people. They're looking up people's properties to see who owned what. Well, once I got started, oh man, it's like amazing because it's information. I mean, my whole neighborhood.
Yes.
To see who owned what and things like lake rights.
Yep.
Very important because one of the things, for example, is that you can't get rid of lake rights. If you have lake rights that date back to 1920s, no one can just erase it off there. If those lake rights were granted, my understanding was that they stay with the property.
Yes.
Well, in my situation, they were X'd out at one point. And I was able to go back and see that somebody messed with this deed.
Right.
Shouldn't have. So I guess knowing the history of your property is good information.
It's good information, but a lot of people don't know how to do that.
No. It was confusing.
It's like, I think I mentioned to you also, I had another friend who had called me up one day, an attorney, who had a client whose concern was that his mother had signed away her deed to some people. She had a touch of Alzheimer's. So she called me up and said, can you do me a favor? Can you find out if that happened? So I went over to the county clerk's office over here and I looked it up and I said, no, it's still in the woman's name. Yeah. But I mean, those are the things that can happen. And so that's why you...
Also, I know that some of my neighbors ran into problems with wetlands. And they discovered later that they couldn't build on some of their property. That some of the property was actually protected.
Right. So here's the other thing. So, and talking about wetlands, I had another situation with that also. I had gone to a client of mine, called me and said, my client's going to be signing contracts today. I'm going to send you the title order, but can you go to the building department and find out if there's anything in the file? So I went over, and I happen to know the building inspector over in the town of Carmel, Mike. He's a great guy. And he happened to be there that day, thank God, and he said, what property are you looking at? And he pulled out all these maps, and he said, okay, well, the house is here. He said, but all of this, Corinne, is wetlands. He said, the client buying it will not be able to put a pool, a playground, anything on that property.
Garage.
Nothing, nothing. It's protected, so they won't be able to do anything with it. So I went back to my client, and I said, here's what Mike said. If they still want to buy it, of course, that's their business, you know.
But they need to know there's
But they need to
restrictions.
understand that, right. So those are the things that come up in a title report.
Yeah. Now, you actually go in there, and do you go in the clerk's office and do
Oh,
some of
sure.
that?
Yeah. Yeah. I had to do that
Oh.
yesterday at the town of Kent. They're great in there, too. So I went to the town of Kent, and they pulled an old property card, and the certificate of occupancy was never signed.
Wow.
So that's going to be an issue for the seller. But, you know, these are the things that we make the real estate agents aware of so
you
that
have
they
to
can
know. There's
advise
things
their
that are-
client, and these are things that are done before the title report. No matter who the company is that does it, these are things that are taken care
So,
of.
Karinta, the bottom line is, if you're going to sell your house or buy one, you need someone to watch your back.
Correct.
And that's what title companies do.
Correct.
They go in and make sure that you're not going to run into a problem down the line. And I'm sure there's people who say, you know what, I'll take that risk, but they need to know what risk they're taking.
Right.
And what that means. You don't want to find out on the day of closing that you're buying 90% wetlands. You know, and that.
Well, that's why you would get a new survey too. See, the survey would have brought that up.
So,
you know?
so you do recommend, I mean, because it's not, by law, you don't have to get a new survey, do you?
Well, if your mortgage company wants a survey, the survey has to be certified correctly. If it's not certified correctly, the mortgage company won't accept it, and you would have to get a new survey under that
When
circumstance.
you say certified correctly, that's the
It has
CO.
to be, no, it has, so that the survey will have a seal on it
Right.
by the surveyor, but it will be certified to the current owner of the property, whoever mortgaged it, the bank,
Right.
and a title company. So as long as those certifications are on the survey, you would be able to use that.
Because I would imagine that the mortgage company also wants to make sure that there's no problems down the line.
Right, well, the bank's not going to, the bank might not give you a mortgage if you don't have
Yeah,
the correct survey.
They want to make
Yeah.
sure if they get stuck with that house, they're
Right.
not.
Well, again,
get
as I
stuck
said,
with problems.
we're not insuring the survey, we're insuring the meets and bounds description,
Okay.
and that should be in the deed. So, but for your own sake, I tell people, if you're buying a new home, you're buying a $500,000 home, don't you want to know what you're buying on the outside as well?
Exactly.
You know,
Exactly.
so,
You want to make sure it's covered.
right, exactly.
Karinta, just as I promised you, we have about 60 seconds left.
Wow.
Final words. What do you want to leave them with?
Whatever, if you have the opportunity to attend the golf outing in any capacity or donate in any
For
way.
a wonderful cause.
Yes, it is. St. Jude
What's
is
the date of
wonderful.
it?
May 21st.
May 21st.
You can contact me.
Proceeds go to children with cancer.
St. Jude, yes.
Is there a website or something that they should contact?
They can contact me. We're going to have a flyer on the station that's ongoing also, but feel free to contact me and I'll be happy to get
Okay.
you the information.
All right. Karinta, thank you so much for being
Thank
part
you for
of it.
having me. This is
Thank
great.
you for joining us today. If you get a chance, go to that golf outing. Have dinner if you don't play golf. If you do play golf, win! No. Come. It is a win situation if you take part in that. Thank you for helping our
Thank you
community.
so much.
Thank you for being you. Keep that passion going.
I will.
Thank you for joining us today. Thank you for being part of One on One.